Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.
So welcome to a Coffee with Karen, cup of positivity with just a sprinkling of woo-woo. So this is a weekly show where I have guests and we discuss, well, pretty much everything relating to health and I suppose life in general. And my guests will be sharing their experiences, sharing their expertise and knowledge from either a mental, a physical or a spiritual perspective, or any combination of all of those, which is pretty much what I suppose I'm all about. So your host, my name is Karen Roberts, and I suppose I focus on helping women who are overwhelmed, overstressed, maybe a little bit overweight and underpaid. And we combine mindset, meditation with different frequencies to heal. I do energy healing, again, all down to frequency, and obviously nutrition, low carb, high fat, a mixture of intermittent fasting protocols and exercise. So I'm all about the combination of things. I am starting a 10-day challenge today. If you'd like to find out more, go to KarenRobertsCoaching.com. So today, my guest is Susan Cowe Miller, and I'm going to allow her to explain. So Susan, if you could share with the listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do, and share a little bit of your story.
Okay, so I'm Susan and I work now in energy healing. I'm an EFT tapping practitioner and a lifestyle prescriptions health coach. A little bit of background. I didn't always do this. I was a primary teacher for about 30 years. And life was fine. Life was good. And then it turned. So what happened led me into this. My first marriage ended fairly traumatically. My husband, unfortunately, was an alcoholic at the end. I was about to divorce him, started it, and he died just before he was due to leave the house. And actually, I've got a book that I wrote called Survive and Thrive After Trauma. And there's some interesting extra bits in there. It's a no hold bars book, but I can move away from that because it was a grim life experience for me and certainly for my husband. So I realized then that stress, on the build up to all this, I realized that stress would get me at some point, or something to do with stress would affect me, because folk can't go through stuff like that and be unscathed. That leads me on in a moment or two to what I do now. But you know, at some fundamental level, we get the stress affects us emotionally and physically, which is the important thing. So I'm more or less a counsellor. I did all my counselling, but I'm not accredited, because I discovered energy healing. I discovered Reiki, and then EFT tapping and Matrix Reimprinting, which is a development of tapping. I loved the energy work. It's just, I knew nothing about it until about 10 years ago or 11 years ago. And I like it very much. And that took me to, because there's aspects of my physical body that have caused me some work to do, some healing to do, myself. And it took me to chronic health, repeating illness stuff, what the great why, like Great Oz, it's the great why. Why do we get this stuff? You know, why did I get this and you didn't? You know, that kind of business. So I work with why our body presents physically, you know, because we hold a lot of information up here, and this has got nothing to do with not taking medical advice or going down the medical procedure, but we can do a huge amount to help ourselves. And the more we realize that, the more we can actually do. So that's a fair introduction, Karen.
Brilliant, brilliant. And do you feel that, especially over this last year with what's been going on, that more and more people are really having an understanding of the connection between, like you just said, stress, mental stress it has to, there's no other way, it has to manifest through us in some way. So yeah, some of these physical ailments, yeah, I'm totally with you there.
Yeah.
The root cause come from stress, but obviously you're one to help people through that so that they heal the physical as well, right?
Yeah, to see the bigger picture, you know, to get to the root cause. And interestingly, the phrase root cause is very much used now, and correctly so. There'll always be aspects of people who aren't open to this at all. But for those who are, it gives great possibility to make tweaks, to work on bigger changes, whatever level they go in at.
It's empowering, though. The way you mentioned there, and correctly so, that we're not giving any kind of advice against the medical profession. However, the difference is that, well, and obviously we've noticed this in the last year, we give our power away to these people that we hold in such high esteem.
Absolutely.
But we've given our power away. I mean, obviously they're doing the best they can. But when people can understand that maybe, just maybe, they could have the power within to create a change. And isn't that a good thing? Because that's empowering.
It's empowering. It's wonderful. It's a fact. And you mentioned, if someone doesn't know too much about the fact that we can empower ourselves, you have given your trust, and of course this happens. You can see why it happens. I've done it. You think somebody else can do the work, somebody else can help you, somebody else can give you the magic bullet, and well, that's not the case. But to empower yourself, to know that somehow, if you just do a little bit of looking around, finding out, starting that journey, you can empower yourself enormously. We hold such power because one of my catchphrases is, I help you to help yourself. And you are your best medicine because of what's going on it's in the subconscious, of course, and therefore the woo-woo stuff, for where some folk are concerned. We hold so much information to help ourselves.
I totally agree. And it's interesting. You say that it's, people do still think it's a little bit woo-woo, but the more they understand the connection between mind and body and, spirit, it's only us. It's still us.
Yes.
Still us.
Yeah.
We've put a name on it, and it seems so far out there for some.
Yeah.
But I do feel that I think more and more people are having this understanding that how they feel about things is having a knock-on effect in their lives.
Yeah, and the belief system, if someone can just get jolted out of their firm beliefs, that won't work, I can't do that, that's too much for me, just to gently be questioned, even as by a daughter saying to a father, for example, just this is the question, to let somebody go, oh, well, maybe she's got a point, just because some of us don't see the possibilities because we think this is right. It has to be right. Why does it have to be right? Because we think it's right and believe it's right, and sometimes it's not right. I'm talking about any negative belief here.
Yeah, wholeheartedly. Our belief systems are probably really what's in charge of us in general, right? And we've all been brought up to believe certain things, and you've just mentioned there, just so powerful, because we're so busy, we get caught up in the day-to-day, so we're on autopilot until you just said it there. A daughter turns to her father and asks a question. All of a sudden, you have to stop and think.
Yes, yeah.
Critically thinking does seem to have gone out the window a little bit. Because we are fed so much info that we believe to be that is so. To actually stop and actually work it out for ourselves and base it on our past experiences, maybe think, really, is that right? That is the power, isn't it? What you've just said it. You've just said it.
Yeah, because there's so much noise, especially this last year, which we probably won't be going into, but there's so much we hear that a lot of people might not question at all, wherein some others do question certain things. It's what's the phrase? It's like, the masses, following the masses. I'm not trying to say I'm out here, but if someone was to listen to the news several times a day,
I did. Do you know what? It's interesting. I did it myself in the beginning. I was so frightened. It was actually my own children that came to me and went, do you know what, Mum? You used to say not to listen to the news because it's so negative.
Yes.
And I'll be like, go, yeah, but. Yeah. And then it was, thank you for that.
Absolutely, just to make you think. But there's so many people. You started at the beginning talking about perhaps the last year's been very stressful for most of us, and potentially, let's say, you were meeting some people very much so. The fear factor involved in anything, but the fear factor of the pandemic is incredibly powerful to some. The fear factor, I'll move on to the fear factor in anything. The fear factor in anything is that, I'm going to lighten this, because when I do a talk, which I haven't done for a while in public, I used to pride myself, I don't know why, I'm a silly thing really. I used to pride, don't panic, I used to pride myself in giving people the 4-letter F word that bothered them most, and it's fear. Fear. So that came, that lightened the moment, because when we live in fear, we're restricting ourselves so much. So,
well, it's going back to, you specifically help people who are struggling with stress and anxiety. And that does link in with that, because obviously fear, there is, we might see it as a mental thing, we're in fear, but physiologically, it is releasing a stress hormone, cortisol, which does so much damage. So Can you share with the listeners, how do you help those who are struggling with stress and anxiety?
Do you mean discuss and talk about the EFT?
Yeah. How you do it.
I'm doing a lot of my work, and I actually prefer to working online. I help people who have come to me with. I've marketed myself initially as big stress, big anxiety, big emotional trauma. And I'm not taking a step away, but that takes someone a long time to come forward to say, I'm going to work with this. I'm going to actually do some work, because usually the fear takes months or years before any action's taken. So I work with people with stress and anxiety who realize that actually somehow it's up to them. They've done their background work. Most of my clients, believe it or not, I might sidetrack, Karen, so bring me back.
That's okay.
I always ask clients, what brought you to me? And they said they did their homework. They looked online, they watched some of my EFT tapping videos, and that was that. So I say my clients come almost out of the blue, because they've done their work, and they've done their work because they're ready to do some work on why they're struggling, why life isn't as enjoyable as they want it to be, why they're finding pleasure in just day-to-day things, for example, isn't there. I'm not talking depression as such, but I help people who I'm pausing because one of my clients came to me. This is before I went into the lifestyle medicine, physical chronic discomfort and ailments, pain. And she came to me with a particular problem in one of her shoulders. And so I didn't have the 3 years of knowledge that I've got now, but fundamentally the stress work that I do, the anxiety related work, fears, the sadness or the anger or the rage feelings that I work with EFT to reduce those, fundamentally physical health symptoms come back to working to release the root cause. And we all, people like me, like you, Karen, we have our tools that we use to help people feel more at ease so that they can release their stresses and find the reason and work with the reason. So I work with EFT tapping. I don't know whether you've discussed this with people before.
Yeah, I mean, so explain, so some listeners may not know what tapping is about. I think it's a phenomenal thing, and it really is combining the mental, and it is there is a physical thing involved. So far away.
Well, I'm not actually going to do a routine, but I'll have to tap the points. We tap on energy channels of the body, and a lot of them are face points, but these are channels, and we all have these energy channels flowing through our body. And if this seems alien, think acupuncturists who use particular points to stick needles in. I'm saying that deliberately because people accept acupuncture and it's sticking a needle in. This is gently tapping energy channels and saying a statement. For example, if someone is highly stressed when they come to see me and we've had our chat, and I'm saying, I'll show you the points if they haven't practiced, and I'll get them to say, I think that's actually, things pop into my head and I work with them. One of my early clients, I was showing her and I said, just repeat after me. Actually, the starter phrase is something like, even though I've come here and I'm feeling very fearful, I think of myself as a good person, or I love and accept myself deeply and completely. So I had this lady working. I would show her some points, and I said, let's have a go at this. And repeat after me, please. Even though I'm not sure what's going to happen today, however, I love and accept my... She said, if you're going to get me to say that, I'm getting off the chair and I'm going. Because not everyone likes themselves. And the thing about EFT is it really is fast because of the statements. And you respond, you think, I'm not saying that.
Interesting.
Or, it was fascinating. I thought, oh, I better remember that one. But I tell that story quite a lot.
Wow.
Yeah,
is that because so many of us actually speak really badly to ourselves?
Yes.
So, I mean, this is the power of the word combined with the physical. So, yeah, where is this all coming from?
Well, she obviously didn't hold herself with much regard. She didn't like herself. And her physical problem was it was one of the big disabling, potentially debilitating illnesses. It was Parkinson's, actually. She'd just been diagnosed and wasn't sure how to go, but she knew that she'd better come and try and see what was going on up here and how she was going to handle it. But fundamentally, she didn't like herself at that moment. And it really hit a chord. You know, the thing with tapping, when I'm saying, I'm moving on slightly here, when I'm doing a routine with someone and progressing, keeping them extremely safe, especially over Zoom, it's not difficult. I mean, we're all professionals in our field. But to keep someone safe, you don't want you don't want to shock them.
Mm-hmm.
And if I do shock them, I know I just would clap my hands and say, you're safe, you're very safe. I've forgotten what I was going to say now. But the point is, I help people. That's what I was going to say, yes. I'm doing a routine and I have this pain. It could be whatever I'm saying, and she repeats or he repeats, I'm having this pain and it hurts me. And it's a number, something out of 10. And we can be doing that gently, going into what they feel their physical problem is. And then all of a sudden, I'll not choose something that's going to make an explosive situation, but I'll chuck in a statement just to see the reaction, because we also look at faces, and if somebody goes like that or goes back in their chair, you see the response that you've touched a little nerve somewhere there too, and then we work to release and find out what's going on there. However, with the lifestyle prescriptions, health coaching that I do to get to the root cause, if someone comes to me with a physical health problem, and I'll generalize just now, it doesn't matter what it is as far as I'm concerned or the people who have trained me are concerned. We have pinpoint questioning. I was talking about this morning, actually. Pinpoint questioning to get to the crux of what might just be the root cause.
Right.
So there's not a massive amount of 1 or 2 sessions where you're feeling the ground. I know what question to ask. And you'd think I didn't want clients, but I work with very personal areas. I work with fertility, infertility related stuff. I work with reproductive health. It could be anything within the reproductive, and also intimate health. Basically the stuff that people don't talk about and just struggle on.
Interesting. So things that you've just said there, people that, so they don't talk about, so they obviously it's all about stuff that's held onto.
Yep.
again, that's a form of stress. That again, it's going to come through. I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, maybe it makes sense to people like you. There's going to be an offshoot of that. It's going to be cause and effect, right? Cause and effect. Holding on to stress in any way, shape, or form is not healthy.
It doesn't serve. No, it doesn't serve.
It doesn't. It's not for our better good, right? We've got to release.
Yeah. So I choose to come out and use those phrases because that's what I have. I've got a fair amount of personal knowledge about these kind of things, and it's an area of interest because I wrote the book because I didn't want other people to. Some people put up with all the crap that goes on in their life, and some people don't. I tried to sort out my first marriage. And then I thought, this is destroying me here. So I cut my emotions off and started the divorce journey. To see if I sidetrack. But the physical health things, it's very specifically related when somebody closes down, how their body is going to. But why do you, I'm not asking what you have, maybe you're as fit as a flea just now. Why would you have something? And why do I have something? And why does everyone who's potentially been through looking after an alcoholic, divorcing and the person dying doesn't get what I got? So somewhere within me, there's an aspect of an area of weakness isn't the right phrase.
No, it's just the different ways we all deal with different things, and in different. You may have dealt with something obviously not similar because that's incredibly traumatic, but before you might have dealt with something in a different way. So there's no right or wrong, is it? It's just the way we've dealt with something at that time.
When I first was learning my EFT and my Matrix Reimprinting, which is talking to our younger self who holds all the information, and my trainer, I was working with another person who was learning, and the question was, well, how did you feel it? Because I was giving the very intimate details of how my husband died, and short of saying it, it was very unexpected. Our relationship, when he was leaving and sex came into it and he died, it was pretty intense stuff. So somebody said, when I was training, they said, now, she's just told you that. Ask her what she felt. So we're all helping each other. And I really enjoyed learning this. And so I was asked, how did you feel? I said, I was stunned and shocked. So I had taken the result of what had been happening and the result of what happened, and I was stunned and shocked. And I probably held that inside my body for quite a long time. How do you deal with something like that? I mean, I ask you. But now I've worked through it. I've tried to work through it. So,
and that it just goes to show so the issue from what you're saying, correct me if I've got this wrong, but it seems to be, it is when we stop communicating, we stop talking. It's I suppose the communicating is it's releasing it. If we hold on to it, that's where where the cause of the damage is done. You've got to visit those who are listening. That cat is.
I've often thought the cat's a reincarnation of my first husband to an extent.
He's listening. There you go.
Yes, we internalize and we block. I think that's what you were saying.
Yeah.
A block held within isn't doing us any favours. Now, at a conscious level, we don't know we're holding it. We don't know we're holding these blocks. But it's only when something has made a client decide that they want to look into it. And actually, the healing journey is a pretty long process because not everybody's clued in about all that's available. And that's why doing these discussions is great, because that's what I was saying. I wrote the book because I didn't want anybody else to have to go through certain things. And because my body responded in certain ways, which I'm managing or I've cleared, not an instant hit, not a quick fix.
There isn't one, is there?
No, I can share information. Now, I know that I'm also not the only person that can share this information, but I've chosen to, it's within my power to give folks some information, and if they're interested in hearing it and working through their stuff, then it's great. I mean, the power that we hold, you hold, everyone holds inside to help themselves is incredible.
If only they knew, hey? If only they knew. I even said to somebody the other day, you know, it's just like the Winnie the Pooh. You're stronger than you think.
Yeah.
If people were more aware of the power that they have internally, as opposed to, trusting, giving all their trust to an outside force, we've got it. The body is designed to heal itself, right?
Yes.
Why do you think it's important that mind, body, emotional and physical health are in balance?
You're asking me that question.
Yes, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, so it's just that it's slowed down a bit. Well, the mind body, I'm working on a program just now, mind body alignment. When our mind, with all its mind chatter, and our fears and our emotions are more realistically in place at its simplest level, when the mind, the emotions, the stresses are lowered, reduced, or cleared, that allows the physical body to take its time to do some healing. Now, that actually takes me to how, I'll try to be brief with this, how our body heals. So let's say there's 5 phases. Some stress kicks in and we go into this number 2, which is a stress phase. Now, this stress phase could be dealing with whatever long or short problem we have. So we go through the stress phase, we deal with it, whatever is involved, we deal with it. And then number 3 is the regeneration trigger. And the regeneration trigger is when the stress is over, it's ended naturally, you've found a solution to end it, it's stopped, it's not causing you the problem anymore. And then we go into number 4, which is the regeneration phase. Now, that is when our body heals. But that is when, maybe you know all this, that is when we're ill, that is when we're sick, that is when we have our pain and our disease, because the body's been given an opportunity to heal. And depending how long the stress phase has been, the regeneration phase, which we don't like, we're like, how the hell can you tell me my body's healing and I'm as sick as a dog? Or worse, or actually, it can be fatal. It can be heart attacks or things like that. So the regeneration phase is when we are not feeling at our best, or we're feeling very ill and needing a lot of help. But that unless it's been a fatality, ends, and you come back to a health phase. Now, chronic health means that you haven't got to the root cause, because you get back into number 5, which is the healthy phase. Life thinks, this is better, thank God for that. And then a trigger, a same trigger, a root cause that we help people find, stimulates you again. You've jumped into a repeated pattern of behavior, and the whole process starts again. And until you solve the root cause, you can be lovely and healthy, and then your chronic stuff comes back. And it's looking, ideally you find the root cause. But I always suggest to people, but free advice, start keeping a tiny notebook just with some dates. When did a flare up of whatever come? And what might have been released, what stressor might have been over. See if you can find a pattern. It's not an overnight discovery, You might
find that that's the thing. I suppose we are so in a. It's just we want everything now, instant gratification. You want to order something on Deliveroo and you want it here in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So we have become somehow, and I don't know how long, is it the last 50 years, 60 years, I don't know, but we've just become accustomed to wanting this instant, or even, like you just said, for some people that might be quite difficult, isn't it, to actually, you're ill at that point, to then look back at what's going on, because they wouldn't normally think, again, going back to the thinking.
No, you wouldn't.
You wouldn't, until you have just advised that person to keep a notebook, to be aware, because otherwise they just go through life. They're never going to make the connections, because we don't, unless it's an instant. You take that drink and then you're ill, and you make the connection. It's what you drank a couple of hours ago. Other than that, and let's face it, there's going to be further apart than that, unless it's food poisoning. It's always going to be a lot further apart, and people, we're not making the connections, are we?
Absolutely. Trying to make the connections, as I said and you've said, isn't a quick thing to do. It takes time, but there is always a connection, a related trigger, which may have been tweaked over the years, but it fundamentally came to a situation where you, off the top of my head, you had to keep yourself safe when you were 6-year-old or 4-year-old or what, pre-womb. I mean, something with the energy relating has, say, a 5-year-old had to keep themselves safe. At 15, something else happened, vaguely the same but very different. And they're not aware they're keeping them safe, but 22 years of age, so it's strengthening a negative pattern of health.
Yeah. Well, we do have, so I come from the fitness industry, for instance. So, we know that muscle has memory, which is a good thing for me. I suppose that's helped. When I'm being lazy. But but it's not just muscle, is it? Cellular memory. We know that the powerhouse of our mind, our subconscious, is like the warehouse of everything that's happened. Not anything mundane, because we can't remember what happened last Thursday at 4:00. But we can remember if we witness something really traumatic, then obviously we're going to remember it. It's those, it's, I suppose, people. So you're introducing people to, come on, make that connection.
See if you can find a connection. No, I'm not suggesting the husband, the partner, with the irritation that I'm suggesting something a little bit deeper than that, although they might get the brunt of it if it's a tiny bit related, but keeping a little diary, the reason I'm saying that is also because when you go to the doctor to describe what's going on, I mean, actually, God help folk nowadays, because the doctors are going to be so overworked. However, the doctor's going to say, how long have you had this? I maybe had it last year. I probably had it about 5 years ago. So they need some kind of timeline. So it's not just to humor themselves. You are going to be asked, how long have you had this? When did you first notice it? What was going on? That's one of the frustrations I've used the word frustrations. I mean, one of the frustrations from a lifestyle prescriptions, big mouthful, health coaching point of view. Our trainer, our teacher was originally part of the setup to do with meta health, meta healing. He had a lot to do with it. And he's saying, what we do isn't going to be readily accepted. I could even say in my lifetime, I don't know, for about another 10 or 20 years or something, but medical practices are going to they're going to need, if they're going to be working properly, people to help patients figure out some stress aspects, at a simple level. Money's going to have to be invested there on the whole thing, or we're all just going to have to be self-healing with no medicine for years. I don't know.
I do think it's coming. I do think I do feel that there is more awareness now about mental health and the connection with the physical health. I think people are getting their heads around it slowly. It is definitely coming. Do you not think?
I think of course it is, very powerfully, but is that not more at a private cost level rather than for a lot of people who do not have the
and unfortunately maybe it's available, but when they're so far down the road, I think you mentioned this earlier, if you are really down that, and really in some, acute phases of stuff's going on, then maybe they're getting the help. But really, we want to get that help further back, right?
Yes.
Before it actually snowballs and we're really, really ill, it would be much more beneficial to people either to get the help earlier on, or at least be aware. And then, but this is why they're coming to you, Susan. Yeah. So you're helping clients improve, some quite chronic health conditions. So the points and phases of a physical health symptom. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Well, the points and phases are those 5-7 points. I'll just repeat them. Some stressor comes in. Then there's a stress phase where you're dealing with the sick parent, you're dealing with the boss who's overloaded you, you're dealing with you overdoing things yourself, you're going through a tragedy that's happened, you're in a stress phase. Life doesn't stop just because you're in a stress phase. You work, you do whatever, and you've got a big stressor going on. So that's the point 2. Jumping to the regeneration. The regeneration trigger when it ends, when you're released, when it's okay. Number 4, the regeneration phase when you're sick, when you're not well, when something affects you that takes you out of commission for however long or short.
There's a reason for that, isn't it? That's your body's way of saying, do you know what? If you carry on
Yeah.
You're going to be really, really ill. So I'm going to make you ill. So stay in bed. Stay in bed.
And also there's when I'm working with someone, I've got to be pretty careful not to, this is quite a subtle thing to, I know you'll understand, but some people might not. I've got to be very careful in how much releasing goes on. Because when there's releasing going on, your body is happier because it can do some physical healing. Mm-hmm. So it's got to be done. A one session isn't any good. I mean, I'm about to be changing my criteria about how I work, because of course one session is useful to open people's eyes, but big healing, big transformational healing. I mean, we can do EFT are great with a quick fix, but the transformational healing takes time, and it needs to be done securely so that a huge reaction doesn't kick in. It's quite serious, actually. It has to be handled correctly.
That makes a lot of sense, because of a lot of areas within health, if you detox the body too quickly, it's going to be too much. You've got to do it slowly so the body can recover. So it makes a lot of sense. What you're saying there is, I mean, why is it? I was a sports therapist for 27 years. So, you'd think like people want instant healing.
That's what I was going to say.
You need to come back next week, and there's got to be, again, I suppose it's going back to this, we live in an instant gratification era, but because they think they can take a tablet, and because maybe the pain goes within 20 minutes, nothing else has actually happened. But because they feel better, the perception is that they're better quickly, whereas any kind of healing, that's why it's called the healing crisis, I suppose. With any kind of therapy or anything, you're not going to get, I mean, like you said, EFT, yes, instant, but bigger transformations, you're going to need time to do it slowly so they don't suffer.
Well, the EFT at the quick fix level is wonderful, but it's also done with a bit of understanding. The person who's doing it should or does know that oh my God, I'm getting angry for this, and I need to go into the room to quiet myself down, otherwise I'm not going to manage. But education is important for the deeper transformational work with anything, because of the society that I want a bloody quick fix. I want to be better now, and they're not. A lot of people aren't prepared to put in the work. So again, it comes down to a bit of education, or a lot of education. It's
re-education, isn't it?
Yes.
It's re-education, because they've been taught wrong.
Yes, but you said it a while ago, at the beginning of this, you said, how long has this maybe been going on, this instant gratification? And I'm not sure what the answer is, but I think it's reasonably new. And I suspect it's got a lot to do with just how smart everyone's got with technology,
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. There's definitely a link there, isn't there?
Cool. It's great that the children nowadays and the young adults, I mean, they can certainly educate me, but it's like mind-body balance, so that your mind's in a good place to let your body balance out its stuff. There's got to be a balance.
Yeah.
Or it gets knocked out of kilter.
And that's unfortunately what we do see at the moment. We think there's a lot of people that are out of balance. So you're with your website. Can you share to the listeners? I mean, I'm going to have all the details anyway underneath, but if anybody's just listening, what is your website?
My website is, let's make it simple, www.hampshire-EFT.co.uk.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So your website highlights the 6 root causes
Yep.
of a health symptom. Is that similar to what you were just talking about, or is that something different?
Well, the points and phases I've gone over, the 6 root causes are the 6 reasons why we have a health problem, a chronic health problem, a big illness, or we get our disease. So the organ is the first one, the organ which is affected. And stress, I'm looking for my fingers here. Stress is a huge part of this. There's no question about it. But then there's emotions, and there's beliefs, and there's lifestyle. Because let's face it, a lot of people, some people, don't exaggerate, Susan, some people's lifestyle don't help them. And then we've also got the social aspect of how we were brought up and shaped. So socially, lifestyle, emotions, beliefs, stress affecting the organ, the 6 root causes.
And isn't that interesting that a lot of that starts up here in the mind?
Yeah.
You know, your emotions, obviously. A belief is, I suppose, just a thought that a repeated thought, I suppose, something you keep telling yourself over and over from childhood, and it's become lodged. So, isn't it fascinating?
Oh, it's fascinating.
In general, people, we think a health issue is a physical, but no, again, it's a lot of it is coming from what's going up. I mean, okay, lifestyle, that can be a combination. I mean, I would add to that, you know, I know how I should be eating. I know that I should be exercising. I know. However, there has been periods over this last pandemic that I've just hit that self-sabotage button. Yeah. And I have to ask, why am I doing it? You know, I don't want to do this. I don't want the result that it's going to give me, but I'm still doing it. It's just a sign that there's so much going on here, and it is all linked to, because quite clearly, if we were all out and about and everything was back to normal, I wouldn't have. Yeah. But because of the negative feelings of being on your own, or can't do this, and there is some knock-on effect that can affect us. Maybe not all, because not everybody has been affected like that. But I know, even with my background and doing what I do and doing what I've done, I've still, you know, that lifestyle, I've still, you know, gone for that bottle of Prosecco.
Absolutely. And I'm just thinking of what you were saying there.
Just that self-sabotage button. Why do we push it? Why do we push it?
Well, why do we push it? Yeah. But that's what it was. Once we can finally think, well, I've pushed this button enough, you know, having a tool, having EFT. I mean, there's so many people talk about EFT or do EFT, and many who are qualified in it. But to find something, or even just breathing, just taking breaths to stop the bad behavior that's going to happen, just to take your mind off it for a split second, to think, do I really want to do that? Yeah, I mean, heck, everybody, no, I was going to spoil all this hour's work. But we all can self-sabotage pretty well, but catching ourselves and dealing with it is something that's useful. Yeah.
Well, that was actually our last week's guest. He had a story about his pattern interrupt. It's interesting you just said it there, really. What you're talking about. We need that. Yeah. Oh, brilliant. It is fascinating. So can you share chronic symptom and how you'd go about finding the root cause?
Well, I'm going to be very personal, because not with you, but I was on a networking today, and I shared example of 2 symptoms and how I go about knowing how to question someone, because I've got charts that I know. For example, fallopian tubes. If there's a potential problem with the fallopian tubes in the stress phase, that generally would mean there's a blockage. Now, when the healing process jumps in, when whatever stress is over and the healing kicks in, that in its most basic terms could lead to an ectopic pregnancy in the tube.
Oh, wow.
Now, the point about that is that the questions I would ask to do with fallopian tubes are to do with loss or an ugly sexual argument. So we're talking about part of the sexual organs or the reproductive organs. So it's not really a surprise when I say that there's some form of sexual to do with fallopian tubes. But my learning would say, Susan, you need to ask gently what's been going on that's caused some issue regarding a loss of sex or whatever. Not whatever, because I said I'm very specific. I know that sometimes it's to do with relationships which have been tested or some potential infidelities. You know, there's something or worrying about a potential infidelity. But also to do with, you know, vaginal health, because, you know, the intimate health. In the stress phase, that leads to atrophy. It leads to ulceration, and it can lead to numbness. But when something has been resolved quietly over time, then the healing phase kicks in, and that's when there's bleeding or itching or hypersensitivity. So the physical signs are different in the stress phase to what they are in a healing phase. And there's a huge amount of information.
Wow.
But again, I would be asking, and it sounds the same, but it's different, to do with questioning about a particular, because there's several vaginal issues that folk can have. It's like a loss or ugly. Where is it? Where is my other bit? That's what I said before. It's a conflict, though, rather than an argument.
Right.
And so we're just digging. I would be asking the question. The person might be able to relate that to a belief, which is not as strong as a big conflict that's been causing deep anxiety held within. Wow. So I know what questions to ask.
So it's really fascinating how to, it sounds like you've really got to get very specific, because, one question, a generic, a conflict, but they could be different types.
Yes.
Absolutely amazing how it can link to.
It's fascinating. But you could also understand how people find it difficult to bring those subjects up, to seek help.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a phrase.
They don't want to talk about, and again, so going back to what we said right at the beginning, it's the stopping the communicating, explaining what's wrong through whether it's feelings of shame or guilt or just, all these are such powerful, and it just goes to show from what you're just telling us here today that it can potentially have a huge knock-on effect to our health. So if we want to stay healthy, and we want to be living our best lives, it needs to be dealt with.
And when I ask those questions, I know that the time's up. When I ask these questions, again, it's like the tapping. Someone will look at me as if to say, "How do you know? how do you know? How do you know I've been thinking about that? You know, I can see when I ask the specific question right at the beginning during a first session.
Wow, that's a skill. That's a skill. You're obviously very intuitive as well. And you obviously have a lot of knowledge on this, a lot of experience through treating people. So for anybody listening, please, there is, and this is why we do these shows, for people to realize that there is help out there. So I do have Susan's details down below. But once again, for the listeners, your website is?
It's www.hampshire-eft.co.uk.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, Susan. And thank you, listeners. And I will be back again next week, same time, with a coffee with Karen. So goodbye for now.
Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.